Good evening and welcome to In Focus In Depth, Bloomsburg University's weekly news feature program that actively seeks the unknown within 4 topics explored in each episode. Stay with us this fall semester as we bring together voices from different perspectives for an in-depth look at the stories behind headlines that touch the lives of BU students, faculty and staff, and the people of the town of Bloomsburg and its surrounding communities. This week, In Focus In Depth goes a full hour to bring you an inside look into what transpired at the recently concluded 2017 Collegiate Media Summit hosted by Bloomsburg University and the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. I'm Jake Hare. In Focus In Depth. We'll be right back.
We taught him how to hit a baseball, how to hit a receiver, the strike zone, the net. You taught him how to hit the upper corner. You even taught him how to hit the open man. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit?
Exciting, yet scary at the same time. The future of media is seemingly changing by the day. Yesterday, it was all desktop. Today, everything is going mobile. As social media starts to overtake search engines, television now faces a similar battle with online streaming it once caused for print media. How does this impact tomorrow's career path for today's college students? When we come back, we'll see how the 2017 Collegiate Media Summit set out to tackle just that, with the help of working professionals and industry leaders from all areas of mass communications. The 2017 Media Summit here at Bloomsburg University featured 2 keynote speakers to help students boost their interest in the media profession. Jim Brady kicked off the summit on Saturday, and Sue Snyder was the closing keynote on Sunday with some final words. Colin Edson took a closer look at the message that the keynote speakers shared with the attendees at this year's Collegiate Media Summit.
Hi, I'm Colin Edson with In Focus In Depth, and this past weekend I covered the 2017 Media Summit at Bloomsburg University. The summit featured 2 keynote speakers on both Saturday and Sunday, Jim Brady, the CEO of Spirited Media, and Sue Snyder, the education journalist for the Philadelphia Inquirer.
I think what sometimes is amazing to me is how you don't understand a world without digital. It's just been there since you've been able to consume it. And in 1995, there were a lot of things that did not exist. The internet barely existed at that point, certainly not for media. It was pretty niche at that point. There were dial-up services, but there wasn't an actual internet as we know it today. There was no mobile devices, no wireless, no broadband connections. Everything was dial-up. No Facebook, no Twitter, no Google, none of those things. And so I got into it then, and so what I wanted to do today is talk a little bit about those 22 years doing this, some of the steps along the way, and then kind of communicate lessons off of each of the stops along the way, because a lot of things change. Most don't, especially when it comes to lessons about how to manage your career and how to make decisions about progressing in your career. Those haven't changed just because the technology around it has changed so much. So, and then the question I get asked a lot, which you should not even bother trying to answer, is where's journalism going to be in 5 years? Or where's it going to be in 10 years? Like, I have no idea. You don't have any idea. Nobody has any idea. There's not a single person on this planet who can answer the question where journalism is going to be in 10 years. Because something's going to get invented or developed that we're all going to jump to and run over here and run over there. The key is, though, it's the mindset. The mindset is be open to anything that's new. Because one of the things that we are now in a phase now, and this is a distressing phase for me, of people who have worked in digital for about 20 years who are now resenting mobile, and they're now resenting social media. And it's like, you guys got into digital in 1995 because you saw that it was the future and you saw that it's where things are headed. And now that the next thing has come along, that shows where things are headed. You're resisting it the same way print people resisted digital 20 years ago. Like, don't do that. Remember what got you here, and remember to keep that mind open to what the next thing is going to be. And if you can do that, then it doesn't really matter what the thing is 5, 10 years from now, as long as your mind's open to whatever it is and you can adapt to it. That's the key. It's not trying to, we're not trying to do the Wayne Gretzky here, right? Try to guess where the puck's going to be in 5 years. You know, we don't know. He knew where the puck was going. We don't know where journalism's going. So let's not try to replicate that, but let's just be open-minded and continue to think about the possibilities out there and not the limitations.
Well, at least from my perspective, people really like to watch political commentary when they're watching the news instead of reading it. How can we get more factual-based commentary into television news?
Good luck with that one. I mean, that's a tough one, right? I mean, you know, I'll tell you that my short experience managing a TV station when I did TBD, it is, and you know, those of us who've worked in print for a long time, I think for the first 10 years of print kind of rolled their eyes at the TV people. Are always the one who were like knocking us out of the way when we were trying to interview somebody. And then you have to run a TV station for a year and you're like, God, this is friggin' hard. You got a lot of airtime to fill, and to fill that airtime often you have to pay people to do it. And like, so you're looking for ways to repeat things and run the same highlights over and over again to stretch to fill the 24 hours a day. So they're stuck with filling 24 hours a day, and they can't fill it by having reporters in 120 countries around the world doing live shots, right? They have to fill it with cheap content sometimes, and cheap content is having a bunch of people you pay to be political pundits and putting 3 of them on and watching them scream at each other for 5 minutes. And even though you know exactly what they're all going to say the minute the segment starts, somehow they still do it and people still watch it. I mean, and now you've seen CNN's, if you watch CNN during the, some of the political debates, they have like 11 people after. They have like 3 tables of people like discussing the debate. So I think that's a tough genie to get back in the bottle. And I wish I could give you an answer since I don't work in television. It's a hard one, but I do think it's a real problem because people get attracted to the chaos, and to be honest, the same way they do in Twitter and Facebook now. I mean, I think Twitter and Facebook are both horrible places to be right now. Like, because I just don't think anybody's interested in debate anymore. I think it's like, you're either on my team or you must be destroyed.
It was rare for a young person right out of college or with a year or 2 of experience to be hired at the Enquirer. It was kind of, you had to prove yourself at other papers and then you got hired. But that has changed dramatically over the last few years. The vast majority of our hires now are young journalists like yourselves, fresh out of school or with a few years' experience. And I think that's because the newspaper industry knows that the path to the future and survival is really digital. And it's also finding ways to reach younger audiences like yourselves. And who better to help us accomplish that than you guys? So I think it's a very, very exciting time for all of you in journalism. We just hired 10 journalists at the Enquirer, and almost all of them are in their 20s. And they've been hired because of their ability to reach digital audiences, as well as their strong journalistic skills. One of them was described as, quote, well-sourced, fast-moving, and innovative in her storytelling. Another was described as having deep experience in building an audience and creating community. Another was described as, quote, a one-woman newsroom. Another as an accomplished visual storyteller. Another as adept at video as he is with skilled photography. So this new round of hires is also very diverse. More than half are people of color. So it's a great new group of journalists we brought in. I think they're really going to help us move into more of a digital future. When I moved off to cover higher education, the violence, my colleague who started to cover the district after me was continuing to cover these instances of violence, including this case at South Philadelphia High School where a lot of black students a lot of Asian students had been attacked by African American students, and the school district was sort of slow to react to that, and the community got very upset, and we thought, well, you know, we really need to take a closer look at this and understand what's happening in the schools and really examine the school violence problem like we never had before as a newspaper. So the paper decided to assemble a 5-member team, and I was asked to go on it because I had this huge long source list of people that I have from covering the district for 10 years. And we were joined by an investigative reporter and a computer assistant reporter who could help us with a lot of the data analysis. And you know, we did quite a lot for that. We conducted a survey of faculty members, of teachers, to see like what their experiences were with violence. We created a database of violent incidents over 5 years and analyzed, where the incidents were occurring. We did dozens and dozens of interviews with teachers and students and law enforcement officials and violence experts. And we basically found, the violence was widespread across the city schools and was underreported. And that the district really had not done what it needed to do to deal with these issues over the years. And so after we published, we ended up, quite a few things ended up happening. The state actually appointed a safe schools advocate, somebody that could go in there and sort of watch out for victims of violence in the schools. And the district changed the way it reported incidents. There was better training for school police officers. What it did was it really put a spotlight on the issue and really got the school district to, sort of address it. And I think, obviously there's still problems with violence in the schools. It's not completely gone, and things happen from time to time. But I like to think that we were able to help to show how big the problem was and to sort of get, more attention to it.
How much time did you spend specifically at Penn State when you were trying to interview students who were involved in that? Were you out there trying to interview them at Penn State?
Yeah, so I ended up I ended up trying to reach out to a lot of those people from Philly, because I was trying to reach their parents, and they lived all over the place, so I was trying to do some of that. I did go to campus for some of it. I was there for the whole entire court hearing, and then I was, on campus during that period of time in Bellefonte and stuff. But actually, I'm going to campus again in a couple weeks to do another story where I'm going to be on the ground, taking a look at sort of what's happening at Penn State since all these new rules went into place. But yeah, I do think it's important to be there as much as possible. For this one, in fact, I probably wished I had been there a little bit more. I think if I had to do it over again, I think after it happened in February, when Tim first died, I didn't know exactly the significance of it at that point. I wish, I had jumped right on it and gone out to the campus and start talking to people, right away. I think I might have really gotten more people to open up at that point. Whereas, I didn't know at that point what this was going to develop into. I didn't know that all these charges were going to be filed at that point, So, but yeah, if I had to do it over again, I think I would have went out more quickly.
The 2017 Media Summit featured keynote speakers that had some interesting insights about the future of media and how it will affect students after graduation. I'm Colin Edson with In Focus In Depth. Back to you in the studio.
Technological change is inevitable, but what about the standards in reporting local television news? Local television news is constantly changing to reach out to new audiences and keep their current viewers. In this next segment, 3 local TV news anchors offer their insights about the changing world of local broadcast news and discuss how local TV broadcasts are developing innovative reporting and news coverage strategies that attract and engage.
How has the role of media, particularly in the way in which we obtain our news, changed since the advent of the internet and in particular social media?
Yeah.
Mic check, fine, okay. We're talking about in introductions in events like this, 1985, whatever. It means we're getting mature and older, but we've seen a lot of changes in the business. Changes for the most part good. Now the internet, we hire now, as you know, multimedia journalists, MMJs. They do everything. The platforms. Rarely do you see a crew of a photog and a reporter and a production person. Hardly ever. Now you're seeing a trend toward MMJs, multimedia journalists. And even though, again, I'm the older guy in the market in northeastern Pennsylvania, one of, I still work with a crew, but with a photographer. But in many ways, I would say 50% of my stories, at least the start of those stories, if they're breaking news, I'm shooting it myself on my iPhone, doing interviews, uploading to Facebook, Twitter. Yes, I do that. As 57 years old, I do that. And it's exciting and it's fun. How it's changed it? I think it's made it more powerful, more accessible. It's improved what we do 1,000,000 times better than what we did without it. The challenge, we were talking about this before, the challenge is letting the new reporters coming in, the younger folks, to understand that you still need boots on the ground. Facebook and Twitter and the access to the world at your fingertips is awesome. It's great for research, what's happening. Your generation probably, I would say, is without a doubt more aware of what's happening on a minute-by-minute basis than we ever were. But you still need people skills to do the interviews, to get into the council meetings, to walk into an event, to talk and know how to communicate with somebody in person. Quite frankly, I see that as a challenge in many ways. All the younger reporters coming in, they're aware of many things, and they're very smart people, very tech savvy. But the only weakness some have is the communication skills of talking to folks and being able to interview in person, saying, what's this all about? Being able to read people.
It's really inspiring as, for me, I worked with Andy, and he would just plow into work, and he has such drive and such a hustle, and you don't want to lose that. When you come into this, you want to be competitive, and you want to have that drive and hustle. You're in charge of, you know, pitching stories to your bosses. They don't feed them to you. And I feel as some younger journalists come in, they just don't have that drive anymore. Some, I'm sure, do, but you wanna, you know, do that. I mean, I see you like that all the time. You're always thinking, what's your next story? And
you're your own franchise.
Right.
You are your own franchise, and you can write your own ticket in this business. It's very competitive, and you hear all the stories about no money, you're hired for very low pay, and that's true for the most part. But if you bring something to the table, or get in and work your way up in whatever, I don't mean just a simple, one single station, but business in general. You build your credibility, you build your resume, of course, but you learn everything about that business, and you're your own franchise, you write your own ticket. That doesn't mean you're going to be a multimillionaire or be the host of CNN or Fox or MSNBC. It doesn't mean you can't. And all three of us, Scott and I, because we're much older than Jasmine, we feed off this energy, without a doubt.
I was out of work for about 3 months, so I landed at NEP, and I've been there ever since 1999. So it was really the best thing I ever did. Take chances. See the world. Go to places. Don't limit yourself to, oh, I want to work in, you know, Scranton, and then I want to go to Pittsburgh, and then I want to go to Philly. Go work in Vegas or Sacramento or Phoenix or someplace. See the country. You can do it in this job. You really can.
Student journalists from Slippery Rock, Shippensburg, Millersville, and Clarion University were joined by APSCUF's Catherine Morton and the state system's Ken Marshall to discuss the faculty strike of 2016 and what it was like to step up and cover such a big story as student journalists.
Most of us were pretty worried about this. And why wouldn't we be? Right? Because were you supposed to go to classes or not? What would happen if you didn't go to classes? What would happen if this thing was protracted? Right? It went on for a long time. Would the semester even count? And what I heard from some students is, do I need to transfer somewhere else? 10 times indeed. And a lot of uncertainty. But in the world of journalism, right, uncertainty creates opportunity. So what we have today are a bunch of those student journalists that were able to seize that opportunity in what was essentially the big stories of their college career.
The minute it struck 4:59 a.m., I'm like, all right, we gotta get to work for these next however many days, which turned out to be 3. And at that point, I was the news editor of the Clarion Call, which is the student newspaper of Clarion University. And since I was an editor, it was essentially a matter of assigning our writers and photographers to go out and tackle the news and make sure we had daily updates, because I'm probably not alone in saying that, like a lot of these student media is like a weekly endeavor, at least for newspapers, as is the Call. But we wanted to provide daily news because, again, the strike could have lasted a day or a week, and it was like in the middle of that. So that was basically our focus, was giving online articles and updates to the community.
On the first morning, I went to each of the academic halls to see which students decided to go to class and see if their professors would show up. We also wanted to see if there would be any professors that decided not to participate in the strike. And I was surprised by the amount of students that did decide to go and wait it out. We were encouraged by our president and by the administration to go and see if our professors would show up, but the majority of students didn't do that. And then from there, I took a couple of shifts and went around to the different areas where faculty were picketing on campus and talked to the faculty.
we as students didn't want to see our faculty going on strike, and we wanted to go to our classes and, you know, get our money's worth. As journalists, we were all really excited about the opportunity to cover something like that, because as we all know, that never happened before. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be on the front lines for something like that. And for the Penn, at least, that's the student newspaper at IUP, we saw a new opportunity to utilize social media. Our website went down the day the strike started, so we had to use Facebook and Twitter, and it was really interesting to see how that actually impacted students more, and they were really relying on Twitter over like the news releases and things that were going out. So we did a fair bit of writing on those news releases, but more, I think, for the students, we were really sending tweets, we were doing the photography, we were videotaping. The band tried to protest in the center of our campus and they got kicked out by police. So there was just a lot of different coverage that we'd never been able to do before, so it was a really cool aspect of that. Although, obviously, none of us really want to go through that again, I'm sure.
I'm printing out these maps of where the picket lines are going to be on campus, and we're having these whiteboards out there dividing up to the shifts of, you know, who's going to be on what picket line when. You know, we wanted total coverage kind of thing with the videos, social media reporters out there. You know, we split up into teams, and then we would have, you know, a huge other whiteboard full of just story ideas and notebook after notebook as far as, you know, some of the stories that Jenna had mentioned that she could talk about. And, you know, it's not only just the big picture in terms of why is the strike happening and all the kind of nuts and bolts of the negotiations and where they're at now, but it's also about the impacts that it has on people, you know, the impacts it has on the students, the staff, all of that. How are people going to react? You know, will they show up to class? How is the town going to react? How are people driving by, you know, going to react to seeing all these pictures out there? It's a rural area, it's largely conservative, except for this, you know, very liberal kind of university, this little bubble in there. So, you know, how does that play a role into it? So it's just about paying attention to all those sorts of things. So we try to get a huge idea as far as the different types of stories that we can cover, and you know, executing it. You know, that's what we try to do over the next 3 days then, and of course the aftermath service as well. So that was spelled out and laid out pretty clearly as far as having, you know, down to at least the hour as far as what we wanted to do for the first day of the strike, and then the second day, and then after that we kind of talk again. We wanted to rewire, rethink, you know, how we were going to plan and organize stuff. You know, we didn't know if this was going to go on for a week, and we realized it doesn't make sense and it's not sustainable to keep doing 24/7 coverage. We're going to burn ourselves out. But there's certainly a lot of planning that went into days prior. Sure.
Kristen Baver from the Press Enterprise and Daniel Klein from the Motley Fool talked to students about what it's like to be an entrepreneurial journalist. They discussed what they did in their current positions and gave students advice on how to succeed in journalism.
The amount of writing jobs out there doing journalism-y things. So, Motley Fool, I write some news stories, I write some analysis, I do video, I do podcasts. There are 25 financial websites, NerdWallet, 24/7 Wall Street, John, you could think of some others. There's a whole bunch. Cheat Sheet, that The Street, Business Insider, that hire young people, some remote, some working in a mill where they whip you if you don't finish enough stories fast enough. But where
that's the one you definitely want to go to.
Where there are real editors, where you get benefits and a salary, and you'll get good training. And this is, yeah, is there less work for movie reviewers who want a salary to work at a newspaper? Yes. But are there more jobs where you can do some reporting and some writing? Are there even more jobs like companies? Microsoft has an internal division that writes about Microsoft. And it's so much better than your old days of internal newsletters. It's amazing video and TV-worthy stuff. So broaden your definition. Yeah, you might go to a newspaper, but you might also go to the next cool startup and be the guy in charge of covering them, because local newspapers no longer have the resources to write the story. So your odds of getting the story is if your press release is actually the story and the reporter can just put their byline on it. So there's all sorts of things that did not exist. StarWars.com did not exist when I was in high school. .com didn't exist when I was in high school, but StarWars.com most certainly did.
No, and actually StarWars.com has been around for 20 years. And I only realized a year and a half ago, oh, maybe they have freelance writers. I should probably try and get in contact with someone there. So I think just, to echo a little bit of what you said, don't think so much in the silos of even looking at job openings. If there's a place you want to work, start knocking on those doors and start emailing the editors and say, okay, what can I do? How can I get my foot in here? And try and identify, I think, more the type of day-to-day work you want to be doing, not necessarily, I want to graduate and work at the New York Times.
I am a contract writer. I work at a place where I can write as much or as little as I want. I've created an opportunity where I get paid to do some non-writing things, so I have a little bit of a base to my income, even if I don't write. And there are, I mentioned some of the names, there are a lot of outlets that do have work from home freelance opportunities. What I would say is I've seen it fool anyone under 30 who takes a work from home writing job cannot handle it. It is lonely. So unless you have a community or a great space you work in, or you do something on the side that's social, I'm pretty established. I'm 44 years old, and my wife would come home and I would want to talk for 2 hours because I hadn't spoken out loud all day. So I volunteer and created some things internally that now I do with staff, so I'm not, but I don't recommend the work from home, first job lifestyle unless there's a reason for it. If you're caring for a sick relative, if there's a reason you have, but have the office experience, spend a couple years making connections, and then you could freelance for the people you used to work for. However much you think you have to write to make a living, it's way more than that.
Yeah.
So unless maybe the very small amount of people who are GQ features writers on contracts that are making really good money for writing. When I worked at Guitar World magazine, we paid $1 a word for 4,000 words articles about Pink Floyd or whoever it was. Those jobs are few and far between. I make a very, very good living, but I write 15 to 20 stories a week. And if you can't train yourself to do that, it will become that much harder. Because there's a lot of outlets that pay 50, 100, 200, whatever it is for the appropriate. And when you break it down to an hourly rate, my day is a great hourly rate because I'm super efficient and organized, and I understand the journalism rules of if I've covered Starbucks for years, I probably don't have to look up what Starbucks said during their last earnings call. I know it, I know where it is. So it's just constantly building that muscle to make freelancing easier. So as we talked about with the other question, when you have that article that you've sold, that you could sell it again 3 months later, 3 other places with the limited amount of work.
Up next, various Bloomsburg alumni convened back at their alma mater to give underclassmen and non-BU Media Summit attendees an insight into the real world, sharing advice on what has guided them since leaving Bloomsburg and what events took place during their time at BU that helped mold their transition into the workforce. Over the next few highlights, hear what Bloomsburg's best and brightest have done to stay ahead of the curve in the industry. In the 21st century, having basic social media skills is a necessity for anyone in the mass media field. Social media coordinator for Millersville University, Janet Kaxkos, gave a presentation expressing her tips and tricks for professionally using social media accounts and getting a job through social media.
It amazes me because most of you guys grew up with social media. I didn't grow up with it, and I would have to think that, how many of you had teachers, harp on you about your social media accounts? Anyone? Yeah. And so it amazes me that people still do stupid things, and hurtful things, and things that, could really come back to haunt you when you go to get a job. Fast forward to today, and these are the main accounts that a lot of businesses have and a lot of universities have. When you're out in the working world, when working for a company, you'll often, be over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Those are the 4 main accounts that we have for the university. Do you know what does Bloomsburg have?
All 4. Typically, I think the most traffic is actually Instagram and Twitter. Facebook, not so much. Mostly for incoming freshmen, Facebook is a lot of traffic, but Instagram and Twitter, like, it's basically what most people use nowadays anyway. I think a lot of people see Facebook as something now their parents use, but it's still a pretty useful site.
So one of the things that we did that was a little controversial was I turned over the accounts. We had a group, our college Republicans went to the inauguration. And so I turned over the accounts to them on that day. The next day, we had a group of our social workers and some professors who went to the Women's March. And both of them did a lot of interaction. That interaction wasn't always real positive. On the day of the inauguration, there was probably about 1,000 comments on our page, but it wasn't from students; it was from outside. You know, how could you do this? Blah blah blah. And it was just, it's such a divisive time. Well, we got almost, I think it was close to 2,000 comments. Social media is often not the only job, although there are a lot of jobs now just as social media people. I see the jobs that are listed on the PRSA website, and I bet at any given time there's 25, 30 of them that are just social media specialist, social media director. So there's lots of jobs in the arena. But just because you have those accounts doesn't mean you can get a job in it. You have to have some idea of, putting a plan together. How are you going to handle it? So I think maybe going in with a plan as well for them. This is what I plan to do. This is how I'm going to measure it. This is my goals. This is what I'm hoping to get out of it. I hope to increase our engagement with our customers, if you have customers, or with students. So just show them what you hope to accomplish. Sure. Other questions, comments?
Think you know your Mac? Think again. It's bursting with tons more awesome tricks, shortcuts, and things that make you say wow than you could possibly know. In this next segment, David Mara, Apple employee and BU alumnus, shares some tricks to help both seasoned and beginner Mac users to get the most out of their Apple experience. He discussed how his time at Bloomsburg helped him get where he is today and demonstrated some of Apple's latest products.
Somebody in college, in my freshman and sophomore year, kind of trying to get where I wanted to go in life. This was a really monumental day for me that I discovered this, and kind of worked my way through and became the production editor and advertising director, whatever those titles were back then. And in between there, I did a lot of consulting for local businesses around the area, doing desktop publishing and doing little things like that, computer training and those kind of things. But all along, mass communications was really powerful for me. Things like public speaking, persuasive writing, the things we do for public relations, all that kind of stuff. I have a folder here called ARKit Demo. And again, ARKit is not something you guys download. You don't download ARKit. You download apps that work with ARKit, right? That's the important thing. And every one of these apps, I'm showing you guys, every one is free. This is one of the very first apps that took advantage of ARKit. You guys know what IKEA is? Have you been to IKEA? So IKEA is kind of an upscale, you put it together kind of furniture stores. They sell quality furniture, but you put it together. I think it's pretty cool. So what they're having you do here is kind of go like this. Just kind of pan around the room like this until the little hand comes up. And let's say I want to put something here. Let's say I want to put, like, I don't know, a piece of furniture right up by that printer. I can go like this. And I don't know, let's say I want to put maybe a, let's see here. Well, earlier today I was having some silly fun. I was putting an actual couch in this room. Okay, we'll just kind of play along here. I think I picked too many big couches. We're going to put a smaller chair here, guys. So let's put a chair like, the one I saw towards the top there. I should go back up here. Hold on. So you guys will love this. Let's go ahead and put this ugly green chair right there. And right there it is. I can go like this. Let's say I want to put it right here. Okay. And so I want to drop it down. Okay. So now, what do you see? Okay. As I move around the room, what's going to happen? it actually puts it right there. This is amazing. As I mentioned, it has facial AR, right? So it knows our face, it knows the structure of our face, it knows where our eyes are, it knows where our hair is. Watch this. Maybe you can kill the lights for me, please. Oh, maybe not that much. See what it's doing? See what it's doing? How would we do that today in Photoshop, right? But you wouldn't have that live. Here's me as a blonde. I don't know. Gray. I don't know. Green. I mean, check it out. I don't think you guys can even appreciate it. Look at my phone. It's my phone. It's like purple. It's really hard to get the light just right. Let's do a red maybe. Okay. Check it out. I mean, it's spectacular. Think about that. That's basically it. Thank you, folks. Any questions at all for me at all? Anything at all? Yeah.
Myself?
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question for students. What's the best entry-level way to join Apple?
So the question was, what's the best way to kind of get your foot in the door at Apple? We have a retail arm, right? We have Apple Retail. And we have within the retail chains, within our retail community, we have over 500 stores, just under 500 in 22 different countries. Retail and some other areas, other kind of places, might not be the best place to start your career at, but we have lots and lots and lots of people at Apple that will tell you that retail at Apple is awesome. And I'm not saying that's the way to do it. That's not obviously what I did. But retail at Apple is a pretty spectacular place to be. And it becomes a really quick growth into corporate if you want it to be. Retail, corporate, those are the two channels at Apple, two different areas at Apple. We do have a really great, doesn't really apply here at all, but a really great college internship program. It doesn't apply at Bloom. Bloom's not one of the schools we work with. There's only a handful of schools we work with across the US. But the key thing there is if you go out and search for that on our webpage, it gives you lots of good information about some of the benefits of student studies and those kind of things that we support within Apple. So I wouldn't say retail is the best way or the easiest way. Our retail teams go through a really strenuous process to get hired, like you would expect, because we only hire the best, you saw in that video. But retail is a great way to get started here. And there's some other ways I would do it as well, but that's a great way to look at it.
For anyone in the mass communications department, it is an ongoing goal to have a great visual sense for any medium. Just prior to the closing keynote of the Media Summit, local photojournalist for the Press Enterprise, Jimmy May, gave an interesting lecture on exactly what it takes to be a great photographer in a segment called Getting a Great Shot, no matter what camera you're using.
First thing we're going to get into is talking about subjects, right? Most of the photos that you're going to see, you can shoot with just about any camera. Further I go through this, you're going to get into a little bit tougher things to do with different cameras. But I don't care if you're using a cell phone. I don't care if you're using, big expensive camera, right? Most of these can be captured with any camera, right? Subject matter. With subject matter, you want to tell a story. Just by looking at this, where is this taken at? With this image here, the subject is the monument, but as much of the subject is the environment that it's in. Think about it. 52 weeks a year, you go to Washington, D.C., it's a tree. In the wintertime, it has no leaves on it. In the summertime, it's green and leafy. But for about a week and a half, once a year, it has the cherry blossoms on. That tells the story. That puts it in a particular unique environment. Lines. And the same thing, this is not sports, but this is the same thing. Look at other things. This is the Empty Sky Memorial in New Jersey for the Twin Towers. But the Twin Tower Empty Sky is over here. Looking back at the people photographing it is as much as visually interesting and storytelling as, yes, I have the same picture they do, actually from way down here, looking through it, showing the empty sky, but showing them in the memorial and the parts of the memorial and the light and the lines is also, part of it. Same type of idea, opposite effect. The Ferris wheel, that's the Ferris wheel moving. About the same exposure time. The only cool thing is you see the moon, but you see the moon complete because the light of the moon is more powerful than the light on the rides. If I was to do this now, because of the LED lights on the ride, I don't know if the moon would come through as well. I'll tell you the last two things. If you got any questions or anything else I can do for you or ask for you, my website is jimmymay.com. There's multiple galleries up on there for spot news, and there's a whole gallery on prop and rotor, which is just all aerial photography. And you can email me questions through the website, and then, like I said, Facebook, Jimmy May, or Jimmy May Photography, either one of those. Okay?
While at the Media Summit, in Focus in Depth's Jake McDonald caught up with several professionals who spoke at the Media Summit after they left the stage. Jake got their thoughts and opinions about this year's Media Summit, as well as their tips for college students looking to enter the mass communications industry. In Focus in Depth, we'll be right back.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
Welcome back to In Focus in Depth. At the Media Summit, 2 keynote presentations were scheduled. The first on Saturday, Spirited Media founder Jim Brady gave the opening keynote, and on Sunday, Susan Snyder of the Philadelphia Inquirer closed out the weekend. Jake McDonald sat down with both Brady and Snyder, both of which are established names in the mass communications industry, to get their insights on this year's Media Summit.
Okay, I'm standing here with Jim Brady at the Collegiate Media Summit. So Jim, you've been in professional journalism for over 2 decades now. So if you were in college now getting ready to graduate, how would you be setting yourself up to set up your career?
I think the most important thing is you got to know what it is you want to be at the center of your solar system. I think one of the problems we have in university now sometimes is that there's a sort of attempt to get you to learn everything, how to shoot video, how to do podcasts, and I think those are all good skills to have, but like you've got to kind of know when you're getting out what you really want to be. If you want to be a great investigative reporter and have them make a movie about you in 20 years, then do that. If you want to be a video journalist, do that. If you want to be a social media specialist, do that. But like be clear what it is you want to be, and if you don't know yet, be honest about it. But the biggest mistake on resumes I see is sort of having 1,000 skills on there, but no clear vision about what the thing you really want to be is. Because I wanted to be a sports writer when I got out, and I eventually changed my mind on that I wanted to do that for a career, but at least I was clear when I got out of school, like this is what I want to do, and I think that's helpful when you want to land something.
I think I work for a campus newspaper. I'm the sports editor. I've noticed a lot of students struggle with writing. So if you can write in college, how far do you think that can take you after graduation?
Oh, it can take you everywhere. I mean, writing's still the most important central skill you have. I mean, if you're writing scripts for broadcast, you're writing stories for newspapers, writing is I can't tell you how many times in my life, and if you can write, I'm sure you've done the same. You've written papers at the last minute in a way that people who can't write can never get away with. So it's an amazing skill to have, and I think it's probably the central skill that I would say. If you have to have one skill, if you don't know exactly what you want to do yet, but you have to have one skill, I'd say it's writing, because it can take you anywhere.
Is this your first time to Bloomsburg?
Yes.
Are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, well, I drove up this morning, so I can't say I've spent a lot of time, but this room is cool.
What do you think of the whole entire Collegiate Media Summit here?
Oh, it's great. I mean, Richard's done this a few times, and I think I might have talked about coming up a few years ago and couldn't do it, so I'm glad to get up here and kick it all off and hopefully give people something to think about and laugh here and there. So it's a little early in the morning for too much laughing now.
Well, I appreciate the time and best of luck.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm a graduate of IUP, also within the state system. And I worked at several smaller newspapers. I worked at a little weekly paper when I first got out of college. And that was where I could get a job, and I wanted to start working in my profession right away, so I took whatever job I could get, and it ended up being a great experience. I worked at several smaller daily papers, and it wasn't until I was about I guess it was about 13, 14 years in before I got to the Inquirer, where I am right now, where I've been for the last 19 years. And I've spent the majority of my career as an education reporter, and it's been great. And I guess the highlight would be being part of the 5-member team that won the Pulitzer Prize in 2012 for a series of stories we did on violence in Philadelphia's public schools.
So how does the Philadelphia Inquirer, like Philadelphia is a huge market, there's a lot of companies there. How do you guys compare to the other media outlets, and like what would you say is the top demographic that you're targeting?
Well, I mean, I think we've changed a lot, as all media companies have, and we're in the process of changing even more as digital becomes more and more important, online becomes more and more important. So I think we're trying to reach a lot of new audiences. You know, we're trying to figure out how to reach younger audiences, bring more people, bring more readers in. And that's been a challenge, and it's going to continue to be a challenge. But I think, you know, the company that I work for is really working hard on trying to figure that out. In fact, we just hired 10 new journalists, many of them with very strong digital skills that are really on the cutting edge, very young journalists. And it's great to bring them on board, to have them help us figure this all out.
So you've been in the industry a while. So you've been around both the print world and the online social media world.
Yes.
Which one do you like better, and why?
Well, so my job has changed dramatically since I became a reporter. When I first became a reporter, I mean, we just had to worry about going out there, interviewing, writing our story for the next day's paper. And now, you know, we have to worry about, you know, tweeting out the news, writing for online, updating throughout the day, embedding tweets in our copy, attaching photos to our work, taking photos. You know, it's really across the board. So, you know, the job has become a lot more demanding, and the way we deliver the news has become multifaceted. You know, I realize it's what we have to do. It's how the industry has changed, and it's what we have to adapt to. Do I sometimes think back to those days when we had more time to just sort of sit and think and write? Yeah, sure. But luckily for a paper like the Philadelphia Inquirer, we still have those opportunities. We still have investigative journalists who will spend weeks, months investigating projects and developing them. So I think we've been able to preserve the most important part of what we were when we were just a print operation looking for the next day. And I think it's an exciting time because we're developing all these new ways to reach people. So,
Do you think that now the new social media age is more demanding because of the 24/7 coverage than before?
Yeah, I think it's more demanding because of the time, you know, of you have to like get the news out right away, immediately, and you know, get it out like in different formats, and so that's a lot more demanding. You know, you want to continue to try to be first with things, so you're constantly, you know, like I said, when you just had to write for the next day's paper, it was a lot. You had more time, but you know, that's what the job calls for now, and that's what we're doing.
Does having more citizen journalists who have smartphones and can go take pictures of anything, does that hurt you guys, or does it help you because you can take pictures that citizens send and take and use them on your website if you get permission?
Yeah, I think, and you know, that's something that, you know, my editors and people sort of above me deal with more than I deal with. But, you know, from my perspective, I think, you know, I think we need to figure out how to work with them, and you know, there are additional sets of eyes and ears out there. So I think it's important to try to figure out how we can, you know, how we can work together. But I also think it's important that, you know, with traditional, you know, news companies like us, you know, it's important that we're out there really giving the public, you know, solid journalism that's gathered in you know, very traditional and solid ways as well.
What are like 2 or 3 things that the journalism or that the classroom can't prepare me for that I need to know?
Well, I would say one thing is the stress of this job. And I mean that in a good way, and also in a challenging way. Being a journalist is very stressful, and it's become more stressful with the demands of the public, or the demands of social media, and having to get things out there more quickly. And there's a part about that that's really exciting, you know, to be able to create and deliver that story, and you get the reaction, and sometimes you can drive change. That's all very exciting, stressful, but exciting. But it's also sometimes, you know, it's a lot to have on you. You know, you've got to make sure you're accurate. And a lot of times that's stressful. So you got to figure out how to manage that stress. And that's something you won't really experience fully until you're out there in that world, day in and day out. So that's one thing I would say. I don't know. I guess that's probably the major thing I would say. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would.
I guess another thing, or a quick one would be.
Sure.
As a journalist in college, what should I be working on specifically? I mean, I kind of alluded to what I do already,
Sure.
but like, what do you
Sure.
think? A freshman coming into college,
Yeah.
what should they do to get themselves ready?
Sure. I think the most important thing is kind of what you're doing right now, is getting out there and doing the job. When I was in school, even back a long time ago, I wrote for the school newspaper. I had internships at various daily newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
I had several series of stories published before I ever graduated from college. And I think, getting out there and doing the job and getting the experience is really, the most important thing. And also, reading other people's work, watching other people's work, seeking out advice for people. I think that all those things can help.
One of the professionals at the 2017 Collegiate Media Summit was Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education Media Relations Manager Ken Marshall. Marshall helped put the 2017 summit together and was involved in panels engaging with students. Last year, Marshall underwent a big challenge when the PASHE and the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties participated in a strike that canceled classes all throughout the state system. This was a hectic time for Marshall, PASHE professors, and their students. In a sit-down interview with Jake McDonnell, Marshall elaborated on both the Media Summit and the 2016 strike that made national headlines.
So we have Ken Marshall here, a state system representative here at the Media Summit. So just before we get into the questions about the summit itself, what exactly is your role and your job description with the state system?
Sure. I'm the Media Relations Manager in the Office of the Chancellor. Essentially, I serve as the chief spokesman for the state system, for the Chancellor, for the Board of Governors. I write news releases, I respond to media inquiries, I write a lot of other things, legislative testimony, policy papers. Basically, if it's any form of communication that leaves the Chancellor's office, I'm responsible for it.
Okay. So this event itself, it's the second time it's been in Bloomsburg, and I think it's been about 5 or 6 years straight. So how many times have you been to this Media Summit event?
This is it kind of grew out of an event I originally held about 10 years ago in Harrisburg. And interestingly enough, it was in conjunction with the Pennsylvania the Pennsylvania Newspaper Association, now the Pennsylvania News Media Association. They have a professional development conference every year in Harrisburg for their members, for reporters and editors. And they actually invited the students to attend one year. Again, this was about 10 years ago, had it in Harrisburg. It went very well. A few years later, I decided, maybe we can do this on our campus. And I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly how Bloomsburg stepped to the forefront and volunteered to host the first on-campus event. It went extremely well. It was put together primarily by students in the various departments, communications departments here. Went very well. The next year we went to IUP. We've had one at Millersville, and this is the second one at Bloomsburg. Again, it's gone very well. The lineup of speakers is just tremendous. There are Emmy winners, there are Peabody Award winners, there's a Pulitzer Prize winner. And what's really exciting about it is the fact that many of those speakers and national prize winners, national award winners, are graduates of a state system university. And not only does it expose the students to successful professionals, they're real role models. It shows that the kind of education, the quality of education you get in our programs are second to none. And the success of our graduates is a real demonstration of that.
Now, one of the keynotes today is about the strike, the faculty strike that took place last year. So, from a media standpoint, what was going through that whole process, that whole strike situation like for you?
Well, the interesting thing, one of the panels we had yesterday was actually some of the student journalists from our campuses, and they talked about their experience covering, probably the biggest story they ever covered. And they were, they handled it extremely well, and I can, personally attest to that because during the strike, leading up to the strike, and certainly during the strike, my phone never stopped ringing, and it was a national news story. And the phone would ring, I'd pick it up, and it was the national news desk for ABC television in New York. Next time it would ring, it would be the editor of one of our campus newspapers. So it was a real baptism by fire, if you will, for some of those student journalists. They did an outstanding job. Certainly, it was probably one of the most stressful and all-consuming things I ever handled as a spokesman for the state system. It was something obviously that nobody ever wanted to see. Unfortunately, it happened, and it was something that it was a 24-hour, well, actually it was a 72-hour job because the strike lasted 3 days, and very little sleep, very little time away from the office. It was an extremely difficult time, but I think it was something that unfortunately we had to go through. We survived, and I think hopefully it won't happen again. Hopefully everyone learns some valuable lessons from that. But again, it was something that we all had hoped wouldn't happen. It did. I've gone through negotiations 4 times. We've been to the precipice of a strike practically every time. And last fall we went over.
So looking ahead with future media summits, what do you want to do different? Is there anything you want to do differently for future media summits, or is there anything you think the schools putting this together can do to improve it, or have different speakers come in? With the success of it being said, what can be done differently to make it an even better event, like in future years?
I think the only thing that can make this event better is if we can somehow attract more students to come. I don't think we can get a better array of speakers than what we have this year. The first keynoter yesterday, Jim Brady, top of his field in digital journalism. Our closing keynote speaker, a Pulitzer Prize winner. I don't know how you can do better than that. And all the panels in between, this is just it is a tremendous array of speakers, a tremendous opportunity for the students who are attending to make professional, make contacts that will help them as they move on, after graduation and into their careers. And I'm quite certain that some of the students who are attending this event today, 2, 3, 4 years from now, will be coming back as speakers. And because they'll be successful professionals, and want to share their experiences the way many of the this year's speakers are doing.
At the 2017 Collegiate Media Summit, several Bloomsburg University alumni spoke to students at the panels held in McCormick, Centennial, and the Care Union. All weekend long, In Focus In Depth's Jake McDonald was able to sit down with several alumni after their panel sessions. How did the BU alumni feel about the 2017 Media Summit, and what can students do to prepare themselves for their careers in the mass communications industry? Take it away, Jake.
Jake McDonald standing here with Ben Stembrick for Blue Ridge and Channel 13 News. So what did you think overall in terms of I don't know how long you're on campus, but like the Media Summit, the program altogether?
I thought it was great. I think it's bringing a lot of people together for kids to see. I know when I was here, I really appreciated it. I came and I was thinking, I don't know what I'm going to get out of this. But I ended up getting a lot of good connections and learning a lot. And I actually met somebody that I ended up job shadowing, and I'm still in contact with. And it's a great way to meet people. It really is. And I think it was a good job.
So you said when you were in college, they had the first Media Summit here, right?
Yes, I think maybe it was my freshman into sophomore year when the planning and the talks for it began, and it was this big undertaking. So to be here back for the Media Summit is crazy.
So you attended it as a student?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So how since it started, how has the event grown and changed since that? Was it still a 2-day thing back then, or was it just 1 day, or?
I can't remember. It might have only been 1, if it was 2, but definitely did not have 40 plus speakers. When I saw that on the sign, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think probably student involvement as well. I mean, I know for us it was really BU Now was so happy to present it and to be involved in it and to go to it, but I don't know, you know, how much of the mass comm department or even students not in mass comm were aware of it or attending the way they are now.
Sitting here with Tim Hipser, who is a content production manager for the NBA. So Tim, kind of asked you this question already in the panel, but we both share the sports information. We both work in the office here at Bloomsburg. So how has that, I mean, I haven't used it yet, but how has like using that helped you in your career?
Yeah, for me, it's just about hard work. I mean, the preparation for understanding that it's a little bit of a thankless job that we're doing in sports information. And shout out to Tom McGuire, who was the SID here for a long, long time and was, you know, instrumental in my career and developing me and teaching me that, you know, you may not love every sport that you're covering. You sometimes there's days where you're like, oh, I can't believe I have to write another game story, or I have to do stats for this game here and then go and do another doubleheader here. But somebody's got to do it, and you can't lose focus. So that's what has to be done to make the whole operation work. So at the Division II level, you know, you're covering 23 sports. You may have a field hockey game at noon, followed by a volleyball game at 3, and then a men's and women's basketball doubleheader at 7 o'clock, all on the same day. And there's nobody that's going to save you. You can't tag anybody in. It's all you. So having that hard work really translates to the professional realm for me. You know, the NBA is a 24/7, 365 type of league now. Even in the off season, we don't sleep. There is no off season anymore for us. So it's about driving forward, always keeping your eye on the ball, and knowing that what you're doing is essential and has to be done to better the product. So that's that. If you can take that from sports information, you'll be in good shape.
I'm Jake McDonald, standing here with Jasmine Brooks of CBS 21 News in Harrisburg. So we were talking a little bit about social media before. So obviously, it's important to establish a name and a brand. But how do you do that without coming across as like a jerk or vulgar or anything like that?
Well, I keep true to who I really am. I mean, I think that being yourself is so important. People love me for who I am, and people hate me because who I am. But when you're true to yourself, and you know, and of course, you know, not only do you want to give them the facts. Facts are facts. I mean, you want to give people the facts, and you want to be accountable for everything you say, and provide them with great information. But it's also fun to give a little bit of yourself as well and your personality. And I think that's how you really build your brand and your name, so that they know they can count on you for the news, but they also like you too.
What do you think are like one or two things like sports play-by-play guys, reporters, beat writers, anchors should be doing to prepare themselves in college for the real world?
Talk to every single person you come across, because if you can't just walk up to somebody and be able to talk to them and have a conversation comfortably, that's going to end up being a problem. Because, you know, if you're in front of a camera, life is marketing. You just need to be able to do that. You need to be able to stay focused. And I feel that a problem is a lot of people think, oh, a reporter is trying to get you, and you get a negative connotation. But if you go in with respect, you're polite to people, they generally accept you. And
how did BU Now, being the editor-in-chief, help you in your career now where you are today?
Yeah, being the editor was like invaluable experience, not only editing on a daily basis and, you know, honing on those writing skills and the editing skills, but really being a leader. That was something that was never like my strong suit. I was never, you know, the leader in the group of friends or in the crowd, and being put into that position where I was meeting with faculty multiple times a week and leading, you know, executive meetings of 10 to 15 students, and then meeting our regular Thursday meetings of, you know, maybe 50 students, and being that voice up there. That was a growing experience for me, but also just kind of being the face of the organization and all of that responsibility falling on you. So, you know, if there was an article that offended someone, or, you know, there was inaccurate information and we were getting emails and I was texting Dr. Ganol back and forth, you know, kind of accepting that responsibility has been like super great in preparing me for where I am now, because as the editor, that's where all of the complaints go. They come to me and it's, how did your editor not catch this? Or why did your editor think it was okay to run this? And you're always going to have reader complaints and backlash, but I think accepting that as a student in BU Now, being like, okay, this all falls on me, really prepared me for where I am now.
You mentioned during the panel today, you know, you get to go to all the All-Star games and the finals for the NBA. is it still, like, every time you go, obviously it's a surreal experience, but is it still, like, the fan in you, like, still jumping out, like, every time you go, or is it all business?
Absolutely, and I always said if I ever become like not a fan of basketball and I find it to be a chore to watch games, I'll leave. That was the one thing I never wanted to do, and I get more enjoyment out of going to games this year than I did before I started at the NBA, and that's a true testament to just how great our league is in. We're in great shape. I don't think that the league has ever been better than it is right now. Just personally, we're entering in a new golden era, so to speak. I mean, just looking at the level of talent across the board is phenomenal. So that alone gets me excited, and also I'm a Sixers fan, so they're up and coming, and that has got me interested and kind of reinvigorated my fandom as a Sixers fan. But just in general, I never get tired of walking into an arena and looking around and seeing all the fans and just feeling the emotion of a basketball game. Like that, to me, that'll never get old.
How do you manage when people come at you on social media, particularly since our panel was about it, like people like to call people trolls, but when people come at you on social media, do you just ignore it or brush it off like you were alluding to up front?
Yeah, I mean, I will never say anything negative back, ever, obviously. I mean, that would be awful. But if it really bothers me, I'll just talk to a friend about it like a normal person would do. But as far as addressing them, sometimes I'll just say, thank you for watching, and I do appreciate your opinion. I don't agree necessarily, or, here's, a fact about what you're saying, but I'm make sure that I'm extremely kind and respectful to them. And it's crazy because, a lot of people say just such negative, nasty things over stupid stuff that's maybe not even, an important news story, just maybe a fun picture that I posted, to cheer people up for the day. And when you address them kindly, they say, wow, I can't believe you actually responded or saw that. I mean, they'll write into the news station's Facebook page, I'm looking at that, and I've become friends with some of them, or now they do watch me because maybe they don't sometimes realize that you are a real person, with feelings or thoughts, emotions, opinions. So sometimes now I've been kind of just addressing them, but always in a kind way.
After being in the real world for a couple years, like what is like one thing that the classroom can't teach you?
I think you just have to have that passion, and you're not really... There's not a course on that at school, and you have to be willing to put in that extra effort and want to do it and go that extra mile because, I work 9 to 5, but it's not a 9 to 5 job. I'm checking my email at home. I'm going to events and representing Lehigh Valley Style, and it's, when I'm there, I'm working for the magazine, and I think that you just have to want to do it and want to do it 24/7 and love to do it and, not expect for it to be easy.
The 2017 Collegiate Media Summit offered college students the opportunity to discover ways to prepare for their future in the media, as well as network face-to-face with professionals in those fields. It was truly a weekend filled with inspiring insights to guide students and their attendees on traversing the path to successful careers. That's it for this week's special edition of In Focus in Depth on the 2017 Collegiate Media Summit. Join us again next time as we peel for more headlines from Bloomsburg University and the town of Bloomsburg. On behalf of Dr. Mendoza-Enright and the entire broadcast journalism class, happy Thanksgiving. I'm Jake Hare, and we'll see you next week.